Yeah. I mean, that makes complete sense, Hilda, because like what I'm hearing now is like lack of information is one of the key things that could make or break us, in college. Because as you said, like we're not, as international students, we're not used to the grading system. We're not used to the writing intensive classes. We're not used to spending so much time with our professors that they become our advisors and they actually care. One of the things that really shocked me when I went to college and also high school was I don't want to bash the teachers I had, in Ethiopia, but they were never invested in my future. Like they were never that involved. They just came in, they just gave a class and they just left. I never expected to have that kind of friendly, like kind of relationship with a teacher or a professor. But in college, your advisors or your professors, they're literally there 24/7 to help you understand things that you didn't understand. And it was a shock to me that they were actually invested in my future. They were like giving me advice on like what classes to take, what my plans were after college. And it took a while for me to like accept the fact that they are just there to help me and they're just there as my resource. But as you mentioned, lack of information is a huge thing because as international students, we're not used to that kind of environment. And as first years,
Yeah.
we're all trying to figure out everything on our own. And I think like whatever you went through, I went through, and I'm pretty sure some other international student went through as well. You know what I mean? And I don't think our experiences are isolated at all. I
Yeah.
think we all share the same experiences, but I also think like the time that we spent struggling, quote unquote, to figure it out, I don't think that was a waste of time. I think like looking back now, if I didn't go through all that struggle, I wouldn't have made like the rest of my college career a success. So for
Hmm.
me, like the failure that I had my first year was the driving force, that I was like, okay, I'm not going to do those things. I'm not, because like sophomore year, junior year, and senior year, while, when you're there for a long time, the kind of resources to use, the kind of
Yeah.
classes you need to take, and how to manage your time really well slowly. So I think because if we had been successful, straight from the start, like from first year, I don't think we would have pushed ourselves to
Yeah.
perform really well for the rest of our college career. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with you because after my first year, I was like, exploration, I'm done. I'm done. I'm just
I
going
love
to do
that.
what feels good.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And that's how I ended up in the majors that I ended up because I was like, I'm done failing for no reason completely. What
Mm-hmm.
do I like to do here? And let me begin to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember because you have to declare a major by the end of sophomore year, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time,
Mm-hmm.
I still had not declared a major because I still wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
But by that point too, because of my first year, I had begun doing very specific classes that automatically converged into something that
Right.
wasn't necessarily very intentional, but it
Mm-hmm.
was because I was
Mm-hmm.
done trying to do everything that Smith had to offer. And I was like, what am I curious about? And now let me take
Mm-hmm.
classes in that direction.
Right.
Um, so I ended up being a little bit more focused, which saved
Mm-hmm.
some time. And then I began to, I guess, network with people who ended up being really helpful in my
Mm-hmm.
life. And the word networking makes it sound very official, like I knew exactly what I
Yeah.
was strategizing. Like I ended up in like African studies spaces. I ended up meeting a lot of really cool professors.
Right.
Not because I was like, now I'm going to be this major. In fact, I learned that the major didn't exist at Smith after I spent so much time in it. Um, and,
Yeah.
and, and then I was like, okay, so how do I make this a major?
Right.
Um, but that came from all of the ways that I failed in first year. And I was like, how do I make sure this doesn't happen again?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense to me too. And when it comes to time management, I think every single student is different because the priorities that we have are completely different. Because there could
Yeah,
be a student who values maybe working out early in the morning before they go to class, They dedicate time for that. They wake up early. And then they go
Reminds
to
me of those days.
yeah. Can you
Yeah.
share some of the memories, please, with our audience who may not really know what we're talking about?
Um, Ruth, we were trying. We were trying to be okay. I remember that
Right.
very well.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just trying everything. And I think that speaks to just how beautiful community can be when you get it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like you and I really, really wanted to work out.
Right.
And we decided to try and do it early every morning, like
Mm-hmm.
first thing in the morning, and we would
Mm-hmm.
meet in the same house and we would work out. And that's something that when we began to do it, like we really wanted to move our bodies, but
Mm-hmm.
individually that was hard, at least for me it was.
Yep.
But excuse me, but we found each other and we began to meet every single morning in
Mm-hmm.
Ziskin, and we would work out and
Yes.
then begin our day. And
Right.
that's something that, like, in that way, we got to see each other every day,
Mm-hmm.
and check in with each other, but we still got to do something that we really wanted to do and then go
Mm-hmm.
about our days. Like, that didn't
Mm-hmm.
happen. And, like, that wasn't the painful 30 minutes of our lives that morning.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's just one of the ways in which we were trying to experiment and see what works and see what we like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I remember that vividly because um I did an episode with Beatty when we talked about wellness, and she obviously she's a wellness instructor and she values, exercising and whatnot. And we're talking about
Mm,
our journeys and how we started working out in college.
yeah,
I think for me, I specifically remember having the conversation with you where we were like, okay, where I was like, okay, Hilda, like I need to work out because
mm,
I don't like the weight that I've gained. And then me going to the gym was just like a short-term thing because when I stopped, I gained
yeah,
so much weight. So I'm just like, I need to find some sort of exercise that's going to keep me
mm,
grounded, that's going to keep me healthy, and that's going to reduce the stress that I'm experiencing because of college. So we were able to kind of formulate a plan for ourselves. And then
yeah,
I loved the fact that, we had each other to keep accountable because I'm pretty sure if I was by myself, I would not have been successful. We did it for like a whole semester. I remember like fall
yeah,
semester for my junior year. So like waking up early, like at 7, literally, we would work
yeah.
out for 30 minutes, insanity workout. Shout out to Shanti.
Shanti.
Oh my God. You still do it, by the way. I'm so proud of you.
So
I need
that's
to
the
keep up.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
that random thing that we did senior year of college, I
Mm-hmm.
kept it. I realized that I actually really like doing it first thing in the
Right.
morning.
Right.
And um, yeah, it's become a very, very, very big part of my mental health.
Right. Right.
When I left Smith and began my new job, it was very, very chaotic, new country all over again, new everything, just like first year at Smith. So
Right.
that year I didn't do anything. And then my second year in my job, I was like, I need to go back to that. And I remember we had this question when I was just like trying to get back to it. I
Yeah.
was just trying to summon senior year Hilda and like junior year Ruth. And
Yes.
yeah, so it's so interesting that I went back to the things that grounded me, that we did together and they grounded us. This
Yes.
time I didn't have you. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I began in February and the pandemic began like we
March.
got locked
Right.
down in Joburg in March. And
Right.
so when I was alone, like I couldn't go see anyone. And in
Yeah.
Joburg, the lockdown was really, really stringent. Like I
Mm.
lived I lived in one of these estates where they didn't let you leave your house at all.
Wow.
So I was in the
Wow.
house for months. You would only leave the house to go buy groceries, but you couldn't take walks. You wouldn't do anything. And I was working at my desk. I was working longer hours just because, like you leave your bedroom to come to the living room to work.
Mm-hmm.
So Shanti ended up just like becoming my saving grace.
Right.
Because yeah,
Right.
and that's something that if we did not cultivate in
Mm.
college, I would never have done it. So yeah, shout out to
Sure.
us. We did that.
Yeah, I know. And this goes to show like the habits you build while you're in college, they sort of dictate the way that how you're going to live your life for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes, you know, a complete change in the lifestyle that you're going to live as well. And like going back to like time management, when I was a junior, I remember when we worked out, and then I wouldn't even have class until 9 or 10. But I would,
Yeah.
you know, after our workout, I would shower, I would eat my breakfast and go to the library. I would get a head start in my reading. I'll do my assignments on time. And slowly I was able to like carve out, you know, chunks of time for me to be able to get ahead in my classes, which ultimately made me, you know, able to better perform in those
Yeah.
classes. So that's when I realized it doesn't really, you know, like people's priorities change is what I mean, because there are people who don't work out and there are people who
Yeah.
work out every day. But the thing is, I think you need to experiment with a lot of things to find the thing that works for
Yes.
you, right?
Yes.
Right, because it doesn't work for everybody. But I'm so glad we found each other, and I'm so glad we were able to stick with that schedule and that it helped us. Because I remember during that time, I wasn't only, you know, performing well in my classes, but I was also mentally well. I was
Yeah.
physically fit, and I was just in the best place ever. I was like happy. I was like, you know, my stress level was so low, and like things wouldn't trigger me as much. I was more, you know, patient with people. I was more forgiving. You know, all these like qualities that I aspired to have, they slowly came.
Mm-hmm.
And I also found out, you know, even my senior year, because like you weren't there, but like senior year was like really, really stressful as well. But I remember doing finals. One of the things that helped me was working out. So the times that I
Yeah.
would work out the most were during finals, because it helped, you know, ground me, and it also helped
Yeah.
reduce my stress. And I would also tell people to do that, you know, take a walk here and there. And then I got, you know, slowly involved in yoga. So all of this to say that, you know,
Yeah.
in time management, you need to figure out the things that work for you. Do you agree with that?
I agree. And I like what you're saying about just like trying different things and seeing what works. I wish I did that more intentionally though. Like
Mm-hmm.
the thing of trying different things to see what works. I wish I had done it more intentionally, because I
Yeah.
think what that would have done is it would have helped me be a little bit more forgiving of myself on the times when things didn't work out. And I'm
Right.
realizing that I'm developing that right now of
Mm-hmm.
like the way we used to work out, it was great, but it was also like, yeah, we have to do this, we have to do like
Yeah.
what if that doesn't work? And I'm realizing
Exactly.
that, yeah, you try working out at 7 a.m. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you feel? Okay, maybe you can also, and I think, okay, going back to that thing of trying things, Ruth, I spent so much time trying to make the gym work,
Yes, I remember.
for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we
Mm-hmm.
did that in very many different ways. Like,
Right.
oh, so now let's try to go for Zumba classes in the evening. Let's go
Mm-hmm.
weightlifting in the morning. Let's,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't. And I kept
Yeah.
trying and I kept trying and I kept trying. And it's like, what does my body want and what
Right.
feels right for it? Yeah.
Right.
So I wish I knew that I could try that. And if it fails, I could be just like gracious with myself and try something
Mm-hmm.
else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have saved me time, but also just would have saved my mental health so much. Just like
Right.
shit that I gave it for not feeling like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I wasn't doing things exactly right. Um,
Mm-hmm.
same with the classes, same with the majors, honestly. Because even if I'm saying that I went to Smith feeling undecided, I kind of wanted to do economics.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like there's so many people's stories.
I know. We have so
Yeah,
much to talk about.
I
Yeah.
secretly wanted to do economics,
Mm-hmm.
and I did the first class with a professor who everyone raved about. Everybody loved so much, and I was just
Yeah.
annoyed by his existence.
Oh my God.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, there is this thing where I felt, and this is just my opinion, that
Yeah.
Americans liked a professor who came to class and just like played guitar for them and joked around. And I was like, dude, just
Yes.
teach me and leave.
I remember. I remember
I
so well.
struggled in that
Yes.
class. That man
Yes.
had fun. And I was just in that class
Yes.
feeling like, what's going on here? In
Mm-hmm.
fact, that class, I met, that's the class in which I actually ended up bonding with one of my closest friends now, Taekwondo, because we were in it together and we are both
Right.
struggling and side eyeing this man, and everyone was having a time of their lives. And
Yes.
yeah, and I ended up taking economics more years, still trying because I had to do it. And it was like, what if I just was like, I actually don't like this. I don't like the classes. I don't like the professors. Let me move on from this, by the way. But no, I kept trying.
Yeah.
There is so much. Yeah, I will
Yeah.
shut up now, I promise.
No worries. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I also took the same class, and I remember coming to you. I'm like, oh my God, this is an amazing professor. Hilda. Oh my God, I think this is gonna be my minor or something. And you were like, did he play the guitar? And I was like, yes. Oh my God. But surprisingly, the class that you didn't like, I ended up loving so much, and that became my minor, and I took like a lot of classes with that as well. So it's really, this goes to show that, the same class or the same activity doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily resonate the same with people. And
Which
I
is
think
why
like,
you have to try things and be gracious with yourself and listen to yourself. Ruth liked it, I hated it, and that's fine.
right, exactly. And I think like what we have talked about so far, we have highlighted, unintentionally, but the fact that in order to manage your time, you have to prioritize your health, right? We talked a lot about, finding the habits that will help you stay active, mentally well, and all these things that you do that are completely like not what you would think like as a first year, because as a first year
Yeah.
you would think I need to focus on school, on classes, but that's not all college is about,
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I would tell other people is to definitely prioritize their health, find the move. You just need to release those emotions of like stress and all those negative feelings. You have to move. And second of all, I think you touched up on it a little bit earlier, but it's about like finding your people, because your social life is also a huge
Yes.
part of your college experience, right? And I also found that it was really, really important later on. And that's when I started to realize, I was like, oh my God, where else in this world am I going to meet such amazing individuals who are so sweet and kind? And although we come from like, we share the same values, right? And then we created a community for ourselves, and that really helped ground me personally. But I'm really interested in like hearing your experience of like how your social life, or like how finding your people helped you become a successful college student.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my undergrad years hinged on people. Yeah, a lot of it depended on the people that I met, and I wish I knew that earlier. I wish I paid more attention to human beings earlier. Yeah, like
I love that. I'm gonna use that as a quote. I wish I paid
I'm
more
like one of
attention
those
to human
people.
beings.
Yeah, like I'm one of those people who are fine with having one friend and like, and I'm not very much of a groupie. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I I met one of my closest friends during ISP, Chiza,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just Chiza was my friend for a while, and that was it, and that was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But when I began getting involved with Saxa, literally Saxa was my sustenance at Smith.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I met people who are just still the people who I love the most still in my life, people who I
Mm-hmm.
still talk to and just love very much.
Yes.
And for me, I think that's important. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think, yeah, like I think that's important that I made those very, very beautiful women friendships.
Yes.
Um, yeah. when I finished college and moved to Joburg, one of my closest friends was in Joburg too, in fact, at the same job. And that wasn't planned. It was just total coincidence. In fact, we applied to the same job in very different ways. We were both on very different scholarships. Scholarships, no fellowships, sorry.
Fellowships,
But
yeah.
meeting in Joburg meant I had somebody that I knew and I wasn't on my own completely. Joburg was really hard for me because I arrived in Joburg. I fell sick in my first few weeks there, and I realized that I was all on my own, that I was an adult who was supposed to go find medication, take it, then go cook food, eat
Right.
it, or else I'll die. And that was really hard because in college I had
Yeah.
people who loved me and took care of me, and I could just email professor and tell them, "Hi, I can't come in today." You can't do that in a job. And so
Right.
having a person there who I knew from college and actually really loved me back was very, very helpful. Um, yeah, more tangibly, that's very tangible. Like for me, that's very, very important.
Right.
But I guess in the ways that are resume-ic, I learned about some of the internships I did because of people. Um,
Mm.
Yeah, like my first year internship, which I don't remember anything about in terms of the content of the internship, it was a Smith-led internship in Nairobi.
Mm.
It was my first time in any other African country other than Uganda, by the way. And I did it
Wow.
with like other Smith students and Smith professors, professors who kind of became our parents while at Smith. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, shut up. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, like professors who ended up taking a lot more classes with, who ended up doing independent research classes with. Um, and now as I have applied to grad schools, I have gone back to get recommendations. That's
Right.
not something I thought about in college. And I'm not saying go to college very, very strategic about, oh, I need to get recommendations, etc. But actually meeting professors and knowing them and building relationships with them has helped me very much. Because when it came to writing recommendations, I was going through this journey with somebody else who we've both been out of college for the same number of years, 3 years. But I found it easier because I could just text Professor Mune and be like via WhatsApp and tell them that I was doing this and I wanted a recommendation, and I trusted very much that they would help me.
Right.
Um,
Right. That's
yeah, so
amazing.
I met professors who ended up becoming like people who I could actually rely on, and I still keep in touch with, even just beyond recommendation letters.
Right.
Um, yeah, like it's been so helpful in my life after Smith, the relationships that I
Right.
made, relationships, I don't even call them connections. I
Right.
have been applying, I have been trying to figure out my grad school, and some of these. I got into grad school and I didn't get as much money as I expected to getting into my master's program.
Right.
And that has been a very, very toxic experience. Ruth, and I know we share this, but
Yeah.
going to a master's program in one of these elite schools for when you're not rich, it's just the most demoralizing thing.
Yes.
It's taken my whole, like all the women in me,
I know.
like it's taken so much. And at some point,
Yeah.
like the whole application process is really hard, but then you think, oh, it's going to be fine after I get in, and then you get in, and then you realize they don't want poor people there
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
So my friends have come through in
Oh.
such major ways, in like friends that I met at Smith,
Right.
professors that I met at Smith.
Mm-hmm.
They've come through in such major ways in helping me make this grad school thing real.